every day. We're surrounded by it. Modern infrastructure. You walk past those gray metal utility boxes. You drive alongside these huge concrete walls.
Yeah.
They're just there.
They're monuments to necessity, really. And we've gotten so good at tuning them out, training ourselves not to see all that concrete and metal.
But you still feel it.
You do. That effort to ignore it. It still takes a cognitive toll. These hardscapes, they really define the visual feel of our world.
Absolutely. So what if we could take these essential kind of harsh objects, these visual roadblocks, and not just make them okay, but actually make them blend in?
Make them part of the landscape.
Exactly. And that's what we are deep diving into today. We've got this really fascinating piece of source material. It's an entry from a personal journal called Kian Meng Ang.
Right.
And the author, he calls himself an old software plumber, which I love. He titled this post, Notes on Gardening, Part 754.
And what's really telling is that the author, Ang, he put a note in there about how hard it was to categorize. Was it gardening? Was it maybe urban photography? And that ambiguity right there, it tells you everything. The concept he's exploring, this fusion of art with landscape management, it doesn't fit into a neat little box.
Totally. So our mission today is to unpack this emerging idea he calls, well, we're calling it artscaping, and to really understand the method behind it. Because it's more than just a nice mural, isn't it?
Much more.
We want to know how this strategy uses visual integration to soften those harsh edges of the world around us.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. So to get this, we have to start with the foundation, which is traditional landscaping.
Precisely. Because artscaping is meaningless without understanding what it complements.
Right.
So, most people think landscaping is just planting shrubs or mowing the lawn.
Yeah, flowers and stuff.
But it's fundamentally a discipline where art, environmental science, and management all come together. Its main tool is horticulture, the strategic use of living things like trees and flowers.
So the goal of traditional landscaping isn't just to make a place look pretty.
No, not at all.
It's about intentional design that, I guess, improves our relationship with the world outside, right?
Yeah.
Enhancing comfort, sustainability.
That is the core goal, yes. It uses living things to create buffers, manage water, control erosion, add color and texture. But, and this is the key, horticulture has its limits.
Wow.
You can't easily cover a massive concrete bridge support or a high-traffic utility box with plants. It's often not practical.
And that's the gap that artscaping is designed to fill.
Yeah.
The author presents it as a truly complementary form.
It is. It steps in when the living solution just isn't viable. It takes those principles of landscape management and applies them to the static stuff, the infrastructure.
So what's the actual technique?
Well, the fundamental technique is painting. Painting surfaces like walls, barriers, utility boxes. But, and this is the crucial part, it's the intention behind the paint that makes it a technical discipline, not just decoration.
Okay, so if the intention changes everything, let's define that intention. What's the specific goal here?
Artscaping has a very deliberate dual function: camouflage and integration. The author actually describes the painted surfaces as a literal bridge between the infrastructure and the natural world around it.
A bridge.
It's designed to fix what we could call textural dissonance.
Textural dissonance. I
Yeah.
like that. It's that, that visual screech you get when rough vertical concrete just slams into soft green grass.
Exactly. A normal mural, say a portrait or something, it just adds another focal point. It makes you look at the wall.
It highlights the infrastructure.
Right. Artscaping works in reverse. The whole method is about applying organic motifs, local plants, and mimicking natural textures directly onto these man-made surfaces. It's not about painting a picture of nature. It's about visually mimicking it so the object just fades away.
You're using the brain's own pattern matching against itself.
You are.
If the utility box has the same colors and textures as the bushes behind it, your brain just processes it as background noise, not an interruption.
And what's so fascinating is how it targets our peripheral vision. When you're driving, most of the stuff is in your periphery. Organic textures, leaves, dappled light, vines. They're messy. They're irregular.
Right.
When artscaping replicates that beautiful messiness, it allows the synthetic object to just visually recede into the backdrop.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I find the context of the source so telling. The author wasn't in some lab. He was conducting a study of roadside landscapes while driving between garden centers.
So he's seeing it from both sides.
Exactly. The technician and the gardener. He's observing the failure of our roadsides to integrate with nature in real time.
And that leads directly to the core problem this whole practice is trying to solve.
So let's name the enemy. What is artscaping actually fighting against?
The enemy is the hardscape.
The hardscape.
Yes, we're talking about the concrete, the steel pylons, the metal guardrails. These things are defined by their permanence, their straight lines, their cold materials. They basically embody the separation of our built world from the natural one.
They just scream function, but at the cost of any kind of visual harmony. Think about a sound barrier along a highway. It's just a huge, long, gray wall. It dominates everything.
And the main goal of artscaping's visual integration is to soften the psychological and visual hit of those hardscapes. It's more than just looking nice. It's about reducing the cognitive load from all that constant visual conflict.
And this is where that camouflage effect you mentioned really comes into play. The author notes that by applying these nature-themed patterns, the man-made objects begin to, and this is his word, recede.
Yes, to recede. That's the key concept. Artscaping is effectively using art as a form of optical manipulation.
So instead of your eye just hitting a solid block of concrete.
The successful application diffuses the boundaries of the object. It turns the utility box or the retaining wall into a visual extension of the greenery or the soil around it. It smooths out that jarring interruption.
And for you, the learner, this is so important. This isn't just painting over concrete to be decorative. It's a strategic design choice that uses visual psychology to improve the quality of a space.
When something recedes from your focus, it lets your mind relax. You process the environment more easily. The design goal is success through invisibility.
But that does raise a really practical question, though. Artscaping is often sold as a low-cost, high-impact solution, right?
Compared to, say, building a whole vertical garden on a wall, yes.
But is it actually low cost in the long run?
That is the necessary challenge. The initial cost paint, labor might be low, but the whole visual goal, the camouflage, it demands maintenance.
Of course.
Paint fades, it chips. In harsh urban environments with pollution, salt, sun, those organic motifs are going to degrade way faster than the concrete underneath.
And the second the paint starts to fail, the illusion breaks. The camouflage is gone, and that ugly box just snaps right back into focus.
It does. So artscaping requires a real commitment, not just to the first paint job, but to a continuous maintenance budget to keep the camouflage working.
So planners can't just think of it as a one-and-done project.
No. Exactly. They have to budget for the ephemeral nature of paint, which is applied to the permanent problem of concrete. That ongoing cost is the real barrier to seeing it everywhere.
Okay, so once we get the technique, these applied organic motifs, and the goal strategic camouflage, we have to talk about the bigger vision for this.
The author is very clear about this. He really hopes to see artscaping applied much more broadly. Right now, when it is used, you can infer it's for, isolated high-visibility projects.
Like a park entrance or a tourist spot.
A place where aesthetics are already a priority.
But the real payoff for everyone is when this gets applied to the daily grind.
Absolutely. Ang specifically calls for it to be prioritized in our daily commutes and neighborhood streets. Think about all those miles of sound barriers on highways.
Just gray concrete for hours.
It contributes to visual fatigue. But a barrier treated with artscaping, one that mimics the local trees or maybe the texture of water, that dramatically changes the feeling of being enclosed, of monotony.
That contrast between where it is used and where it should be used, that really highlights the challenge, doesn't it?
It's a bureaucratic challenge. It's easier to get funding for a beautiful design in a fancy park than it is for a utility box on a gritty side street.
Even though that side street is where more people experience that daily visual chaos.
And this brings up spontaneous artscaping, too. You see citizens trying to do this themselves, painting things to blend in. This concept just formalizes that impulse. It gives designers a real tool beyond just planting a bush.
So what does this all mean? If we put all the insights from the source together, we get a pretty robust definition.
We do.
Artscaping takes the core ideas of landscape design, improving our relationship with the world, and applies them to our existing static infrastructure, the hardscapes.
And it does so through the medium of applied art, specifically painted organic motifs. It's a formal, strategic answer to visual noise.
It really proves that a smart understanding of art can be a powerful tool for environmental management.
Provided, of course, that the maintenance plan is actually in place.
Let's summarize the key takeaways from the kianmeng.org journal for you. First, artscaping is a complementary practice to traditional horticulture-based landscaping.
Its tools are painted organic motifs applied directly to things like utility boxes and retaining walls.
And its technical goal is the strategic camouflage and softening of those hardscapes. It's all about reducing visual dissonance, reducing that mental clutter.
It transforms passive, cold infrastructure into active, integrated parts of the landscape.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on, and this builds directly on that idea of visual disappearance. If the main goal of good artscaping is to make essential infrastructure recede, to become functionally invisible, what are the deeper implications of that success when we make these necessary objects disappear from our visual focus?
We've talked about the benefit reducing mental clutter, but is there a cost to never truly seeing the support structures of our society? Artscaping trains us to look through the utility box, the sound wall. So think about what other crucial, functional things in your life you are constantly trained not to see, whether it's through deliberate design or just habit. Does excellent design sometimes create a kind of beautiful ignorance?
That is a deep question to consider. On your next commute, take a moment. Notice the hardscapes. Notice the gray. And then look for the attempts at artscaping. See if you can spot the difference between real camouflage and just a standard mural. Has the future of artscaping arrived in your neighborhood yet? We certainly hope you start looking for it.